Chapter 44. At Imora Mora.
As mortal and as reckless as you are, you evade death like a faultless pest. It is no wonder you are called At Imora Mora.
Tiamatu's words cleave through the resonant roar and static of the aggressive rainfall birthed by the collision's aftermath. I was briefly parted from my consciousness. Parias maintained the reins. We hover over the perilous, unresting, coal-black sea, dry and in one piece. Tiamatu, refilling the patterns of his design, levitates above us in an irrefutably dominant display of hierarchy.
Surrender to me, full control,
Parias says, as I once again find myself face to face with my ancestor in this tranquil realm.
You have yet to empty yourself entirely. Do you not see that our two wills are at odds within this one vessel? You must submit without reluctance and have faith in our bloodline, in what has brought you to this very point. I assure you, as I assure myself, Yaloom will do the rest and balance Oma's fate. Relindor's sacrifice set in motion more than we may ever hope to decipher. He is the hand of Yaloom, do not deny this. And thus, as long as there is breath, we fight, for God is with us.
The shock I am experiencing is surreal, shaking away from my being the layers of obfuscation, lies, and deceit. To hear this confirmation, this proof that Relindor genuinely is a prophet and, more remarkably, an actor of Yaloom himself. To hear this from my ancestor, it is overwhelmingly relieving. Furthermore, Parias firmly establishes that Yaloom himself is with us, and thus it is not written in the parchment of time that we shall fail. As simply as that, my doubts vanish, and my worries gravitate to the heavens. There is one who is greater than all, and it is he who will guide us. This fight is not ours alone. Parias recreates his astral longsword. Tiamatu fully emerges from the umbra of the showering black torrent and into view, regenerating, stringing together patches of himself as he passes through. He haughtily walks upon the black and cloudy waters. Bending forth, the pale god extrudes his spine upright and pulls it from the confines of his anatomy. Once a new spine has materialized to replace the discarded, the god gives new form to his extracted column of bones. A grim scythe is arranged, a collector of life. Screams of its countless victims, still audible, still taint upon its talon-like blade.
The grief-bringer. You remember it, do you not?
Tiamatu inquires of my ancestor as he fondly caters to his weapon.
This is the instrument I had gifted death so that he could more efficiently accrue the fleeting suffering of the dying before they could be recycled back into the mortal realms, no matter the world, as there are many, and they are different. But the form of their ends all come in the same shape, by the same tool, by this. You are its sole fugitive.
He holds it forward. A pole of cartilage and bones cue the eyes to follow the pattern up to a skeletal hand, firmly clasping, as a blacksmith's vice, a long and sickled black blade, polished to a gleam in the lights of the relic moons that remain. Does he mean to say that Parias had not perished all of those centuries ago? That he exists in and eternally wanders the temperamida? Is this a status granted to him by way of his Drakin affiance? Or does he remain because there is yet a duty unfulfilled? These questions, and many, many more, begin to blitz and raid my mind. They clash, Tiamatu showing the skills of an eternity of combat, a caliber which he was suppressing before. Parias, matching his finesse, now entirely free of my uncertainty and abrupt reluctance. The two spark their weapons against one another's, swinging hundreds of times in a span of seconds. The god constantly creates distance for his longer strokes, whilst Parias administers a steady pressure, trailing him as a disobedient shadow. To my astonishment, the advantage in skill favors Parias, but, more patently, the advantage in stamina and endurance lies with the immortal. What's more, Tiamatu's icy aura gradually imparts patches of rime and frost upon Parias' scales. How long before his muscles and joints are brought to a numbing halt? My body is adept against heat, but not against the cold. Dracoma, of course, is well aware of this. He flaps his wings and launches himself backward while transitioning from his longsword to my astral bow. He looses a barrage. Tiamattu assembles his crystalline dome, which is hardly sturdy enough to handle the discharge. Detonations that would melt mountains, impeded by mere ice. His chains burst through the malformed sphere and are swiftly parried by my ancestor's blade. Parias's adroit conversion of allows him to alternate between differing cosmic weapons in an instant. Following the chains from his blemished barrier, Tiamattu curves the Griefbringer in a high and bending vertical swing. A sudden chill shrieks at my ancestor's instinct, driving him to evade rather than parry the slicing wave birthed by the falling scythe. He turns to find a fine canyon parting Oma herself as an after-effect of Tiamattu's attack. We follow it along the skyline with our Draken's eye view. It cuts all the way through the continent, from one end to the other. The black waters cascade at the rift's ledges, falling deep and without interruption. If Oma does not regain her usual motion, she will not be able to produce the gravity required to keep herself from splitting in two. Our world has already begun to move again, but it is far from its uniformity. To be in the position to witness how one contends with something as calamitous as this is, in equal parts, thrilling and daunting. The stained waves below churn until they phase into the form of a giant, vaulting arms reaching to devour Parias. Meanwhile, the pale god dichotomizes himself, creating a single clone whom he sends into the fray, armed with a differing variant from his arsenal of bones, a warhammer. Dracoma skillfully barrels and flies around and about the grasping and coiling waters and collides with the foe god. The original raises his Griefbringer once more, coating it in a wavering shadow.
Through time and space and realm alike, death shall pursue you.
The pale god attacks once more, but with a force lesser than the last and with an unknown element wedded to it. The obscure wave indiscriminately cuts past his own clone, who distracts and shades Parias from its animation and being up until it has arrived too near to avoid. Had he not been diverted, employing our Draken's eye view against the vaulting waves of hungry arms, he would have been able to avoid it. The cunning strike gives him no time to react with any viable retort but to shield himself by sealing his wings. And thus the dark slash visibly slices through, yet no damage is incurred. What is this? The clone, too, is unhindered and capitalizes on this favorable circumstance, clobbering the wing cocoon Dracoma, breaking the left wing and elbow, and shooting him into the clutches of the gobbling hands below. The flailing, watery arms, now joined into one, slam and carry my injured ancestor into the depths of the obsidian ocean.
That shadow strike was a wave of accelerated time. He wants to run the clock dry and sever me as the operator of this frame. And he has. I can perform one last action, and it will be to free us from the murderous current drowning us. Finishing this is your responsibility. Do not part with your faith. Keep fighting.
I was wrong to assume that Tiamattu carried no authority upon the passage of time. Nevertheless, Parias's message is clear. In spite of the oppressive choke of the sea, the acclaimed Dracoma conjures an astral harpoon, sparking and teeming with as erratic as its conception. Against the goal of a god and the weight of the world he throws. The spearhead pierces the Fukulama of furious tides and inked darkness with an undying obsession to reach the surface and a ceaseless ambition to break every limit and defy every obstacle in between. It breaches where sky meets ocean. Tiamattu indifferently steps away from its gushing eruption, assured in his looming victory. Yet his expression fluctuates to that of one who recognizes crisis when he discovers a cosmic rope hooked into the base of the pole. Alike the compelling force of a great weight plunging from a steep height all the whilst attached to a grand pulley, my ancestor is expeditiously hauled up to the harpoon, baffling the god who was certain that the oceanic grasp could not be braved. Parias grabs hold of his aquatic spear of light and fluently translates it into his favored longsword, all within one perfect motion, concluding with a circular slash through the metal of the reformed collar and the pallid throat of his nemesis, successfully decapitating the immortal. And there I was, or rather here I am, in his place, alone.